"That's not just a kid," Alexander whispered. That's my face." His fiancée was waiting at the altar, but his past was waving from a sidewalk in D.C. "Tell her to stop waving like that. He'll recognize them." Amelia yanked Queen's tiny hand down, but it was too late. The Rolls-Royce had already stopped. The silk tie was worth more than the groceries in a working-class D.C. home. The tuxedo had been hand-delivered from Milan. And the man wearing both? Billionaire real estate mogul Alexander Hartwell, en route to marry Kiara Monroe, the political strategist everyone in D.C. wanted at their table. Everything about this day had been planned to the second, from the drone shots of Embassy Row to the live harpist flown in from Boston. Nothing could go wrong. Until the traffic light turned red at 17th and H Street NW, right across from a rundown Safeway where Alexander hadn't been in years. He glanced out the tinted window absently, rehearsing his vows in his head, then froze. There she was, Amelia, his ex-wife, standing under a cracked metro sign in a windbreaker that didn't suit the weather. She looked thinner, tougher, stronger. But it wasn't her that made his heart stop. It was the two children standing beside her, a boy and a girl, both no older than 6, both with his eyes. Same bone structure, same way of squinting into the sunlight, same defiant chin he saw in the mirror every morning. He blinked. The girl waved. "Sir, do you want me to keep driving?" the driver asked from the front. Alexander didn't answer. He was already unbuckling his seatbelt. The glass between his past and future had cracked. And in that moment, he realized, you can plan your future to the second, but some truths don't care about timing. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I've missed you all so much. It's been a tough ride with some technical issues, but by God's grace, we're getting everything back on track. Thank you for sticking with me. Your support means everything. Before we begin, I want to say a little prayer over everyone watching, especially the women. To the women, may God strengthen you, comfort you, and fill your heart with peace and favor. To the men, may God guide you, bless your efforts, and give you wisdom in all you do. And may God's protection rest on every single one of you. Amen. If you're ready for today's story, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My USA and UK family, I see you. And please watch till the end, because tomorrow I'll be dropping another story you wouldn't want to miss. Now, let's get into the story. He hadn't seen Amelia in 7 years. Back then, he told himself walking away was for the best. That success would give him time later to fix what he broke. But now, standing in front of a truth he never prepared for, Alexander realized, some broken things don't wait. They grow. They learn to walk. And sometimes they wave at you from a bus stop, asking if you still remember them. The door clicked shut behind him. Back inside the car, the temperature had dropped, but it wasn't the AC. It was him. Alexander sat still, one hand on his knee, the other trembling slightly over his tie clip. His driver, Daryl, glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "Sir, should I pull over?" Alexander didn't answer right away. He stared straight ahead, but his eyes weren't seeing the road. They were locked on the past, on two small faces framed in sunlight, on Amelia adjusting the strap of the girl's backpack like she'd done it 100 times before. He finally shook his head. No, Keep driving. Daryl hesitated, but obeyed. The car eased forward again, but the world outside no longer felt like the one Alexander knew. Familiar streets blurred at the edges. The marble calm of his world, his carefully curated, sterile empire, had just been pierced by a moment he couldn't unsee. 7 years ago. He still remembered the day he walked out. Amelia had been standing in the doorway of their apartment near Florida Avenue. Her eyes had been tired from 2 jobs, and her voice had cracked when she asked, "You really think money can love you back?" He hadn't answered. Not really. Just promised her that once things were settled, he'd come back for her. Once the business stabilized, once the contracts were signed, once he could offer her more than just rent and ramen. He left with a suitcase and a speech about needing space to grow. But what he really needed was success. He told himself that if he could just break into DC's elite real estate world, if he could land one big investor, one major project, he'd fix everything. That Amelia would wait, that she'd understand. She didn't, and she shouldn't have. Alexander blinked, trying to focus. The hum of the city returned faintly through the tinted glass. Sirens, a horn, the dull thump of bass from a passing car. But inside the vehicle, silence clung to him like fog. He picked up his phone. Notifications stacked the screen like an avalanche. Kiara. They're lining everyone up for photos. We're waiting on you, baby. Mom. Proud of you today, son. You made it. Event planner, Maya. Champagne pyramid in position. We need you here in 25. He locked the phone without replying. A champagne pyramid. God, he was supposed to be marrying Kiara Monroe in 90 minutes. Georgetown Estate, catered by a private chef flown in from Atlanta. Helicopter shots of the Hudson Ballroom. Journalists from the Washingtonia and DC Modern Elite were covering the story as the wedding of the year. But his mind wouldn't leave that sidewalk. Leo, Queen. Their names came to him even though no one had spoken them yet. He just knew. It was getting harder to breathe. Alexander loosened his tie, eyes flicking up to the passing city. They were crossing into the familiar territory now, past rows of federal buildings and boutiques, the faceless cafes where business meetings became empires. His world. The streets were clean here, smooth, controlled, not like the cracked concrete near Safeway where Amelia stood, where Queen had waved with a stuffed animal hanging from her wrist by one ear. He'd built his life out of glass and steel, white papers, and closed-door deals. He wore watches that cost more than Amelia's yearly rent probably had. He thought this would be enough to silence the guilt. But guilt doesn't fade. It waits. Quiet, patient, sharpening its edges until one day it finds you again at a red light, and it brings children with it. His chest tightened. He looked down at his phone again, hovering over Kiara's name. She had no idea. He hadn't even told her about Amelia, had spun some generic story about a young love that fizzled. She believed she was marrying a man with a clean past and a bulletproof future. Now Alexander wasn't sure that man had ever existed. He clenched his jaw, watching the city blur by. If this part moves something in you, if you believe ordinary people can do extraordinary things, then maybe these stories belong in more hearts. Maybe yours. Don't let this just be another video you scroll past. Stay with us. The driver cleared his throat. We're about 15 out, sir. Alexander nodded absently. 15 minutes to the biggest moment of his life. But his mind was still stuck in that instant when Queen looked up and waved. She had no idea who he was. Just a man in a car. Probably a stranger. But her face, her eyes, how could Amelia not tell him? Or maybe she tried. Maybe he didn't listen. Maybe he was too busy building something that he thought mattered. He had promised Amelia they'd have a better life. But it turned out she built that life without him. And now he had to decide if he was brave enough to face it, or if he'd walk into a mansion and say, "I do," to a future that already felt like a lie. The car barely stopped before Alexander pulled the handle. His shoes hit the sidewalk with a polished click. Italian leather meeting broken concrete. A gust of wind carried city dust past his ankles as he stepped forward, drawn to the bus stop like gravity itself had shifted. Amelia turned slowly. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp. Her eyes scanned him like a document she had already read 100 times. Behind her, the boy stared, wide, curious, unafraid. Then came the words, simple, direct, undeniable. "You look like the man in Mommy's picture?" Alexander's breath caught, not because of the voice, it was small, honest, but because of the certainty behind it. The kind you can't fake. The kind that comes from blood. His gaze dropped to the little girl standing beside the boy, her hand wrapped tight around a worn stuffed animal. She looked up at him, blinking. The resemblance wasn't imagined. It was perfectly real. His jaw, his eyes, his silence. "What are their names?" he asked, voice raw. Amelia exhaled, slow and steady. "Leo," she said, nodding towards the boy. "And Queen." The names fell into him like anchors. His heart pounded. He opened his mouth to speak, to apologize, to explain, but nothing came out. Amelia's tone didn't rise. It didn't shake. "You're not supposed to be here, Alexander." Her words sliced through whatever script he thought he had prepared. He took a step closer, helpless, lost. Amelia didn't move. She looked him dead in the eyes, then said quietly, not with rage, not with tears, but with truth, "Well, now you do." Amelia didn't cry when the test turned positive. She just sat on the edge of the bathtub, a half-eaten cracker in one hand and silence in the other. Alexander was already gone by then, chasing skyscrapers, boardrooms, and a version of himself that didn't include her. She called once, left a voicemail. "It's not about getting back together. I just thought you should know." He never called back. 9 months later, she gave birth alone at a clinic in Southeast DC. No epidural, no flowers, no last name to pass on. Just grit and breath and the fierce will to survive. Leo came first, quiet but strong. Then Queen, a fighter from the start, screaming like she knew the world had already underestimated her. Days blurred into years. She cleaned houses in neighborhoods that didn't even pretend to see her. Did overnight shifts at the nursing home on New York AV. Took buses with 2 strollers. Packed peanut butter sandwiches. Taught Leo to read using torn library books. She counted coins at gas stations and prayed over cracked heels and aching bones. Their father's name was printed on buildings downtown. But his children had never ridden in a car with working heat. When Queen caught the flu at age 2, Amelia walked 3 blocks in freezing rain just to keep her fever down. No one offered help. They looked right through her. Still, she never begged. She built a home from second-hand furniture and fierce love. No child support, no birthday cards, just bedtime songs and determination. Because Amelia had learned early what the world does to black women who fall apart. So she didn't. She stood alone and raised 2 children who would never have to. Embassy Row was glowing. Florists floated between rose towers and silk-draped tables, adjusting petals with precision. A string quartet rehearsed beneath the marble archway. Guests in tailored suits sipped champagne on the lawn, unaware that the groom hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. Alexander stood in his walk-in closet, surrounded by quiet luxury. Cufflinks still in their velvet box. Tie draped, untouched. The tuxedo fit like armor, but it felt like concrete. His phone buzzed again. "Kiara, they're calling me radiant. Hurry, baby. I want you to see me first." He stared at the screen, thumb still. In one hand he held the ring box. In the other, a ghost. 2 small faces and a truth he could no longer bury. Leo. Queen. He could still see the boy's quiet confidence. The way Queen held that worn stuffed bunny like it was sacred. His children. Children Kiara didn't know existed. Alexander sank onto the edge of a leather bench, elbows on his knees. The room smelled of cedar and cologne, but all he could feel was that cold sidewalk. How do you marry someone when your truth is sitting on a sidewalk miles away? How do you vow forever knowing part of your past is 5 years old and breathing? He'd built a life so clean, it squeaked. But some stains don't stay hidden. Some legacies arrive unexpected. Small hands, wide eyes, asking nothing but the truth. Maybe you've made a choice that haunts you too. Maybe someone out there is waiting for you to come back. If this story is digging up something real, don't turn away. Don't leave without staying connected. Queen was barely 2 when the fever hit. One moment she was laughing in the living room, dragging her stuffed bunny by the ear. The next, her body went limp, burning hot, eyes fluttering. Amelia didn't hesitate. She wrapped Queen in a thrift store blanket, grabbed Leo's hand, and ran 3 blocks to the emergency room. No car, no babysitter, no time. They waited 6 hours in a cold hallway chair before a doctor even said her name. 18 specialists came and went. Whispers, headshakes, charts, shrugs, sepsis, advanced, no response to treatment. We're doing everything we can. They weren't. They were already giving up. Queen was slipping, her chest barely rising, skin turning pale against Amelia's arms. A monitor beeped in the distance like a countdown. And then came the voice, soft, southern. "Boil onion skin, lemon peel, peppermint. Cool it. Rub it under her arms and knees. Do it fast." Amelia turned. It was the black maid who cleaned the floors at night. A woman no one had looked at twice. No lab coat, no badge, no clipboard. But something in her voice was ancient, certain. Amelia did it, with stolen hot water and what she could find in a break room fridge. And Queen coughed, just once, then again. Her eyes opened. Doctors called it spontaneous, a miracle. They never asked the maid her name. But Amelia never forgot it. There are women who raise the world without credit, who heal, who teach, who fight without being asked. Amelia was one. That maid was another. And together, they saved a girl the system had already buried. The wedding prep room was too quiet. Just beyond the double doors, the orchestra swelled. Guests took their seats beneath chandeliers made of hand-blown glass. 1,000 white flowers lined the aisle, and at the end of it, his future waiting in lace. Alexander stared at it all from behind the curtain, frozen. He could hear Kiara's laughter echo in the courtyard, joyful, certain, but inside his mind was unraveling. She's better off. It's too late. I didn't know. He had told himself those lies for years, wrapped them in ambition, tied them with justification. But today, they fell apart. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old phone, one he hadn't touched in years, one that still held pieces of Amelia. There was one voicemail, unopened. He hit play. Her voice was low, tired. I didn't call for help. I called so they'd know who their father was. In case you ever wondered, in case they ever asked. Silence followed. But it echoed louder than anything the string quartet could play. Alexander looked down at the ring box in his hand. Then at the mirror. The man staring back looked perfect. Tailored, composed, powerful. But for the first time, he didn't recognize himself. The truth was no longer waiting at a bus stop. It was inside him now, demanding something more than performance. He had two choices. Say I do to the life he built on silence, or say nothing at all, and go find what he'd left behind. Alexander didn't run. He walked out of the wedding suite with quiet certainty, every step deliberate. No grand speech, no scene, just silence. He paused at the mirror one last time, then reached to his lapel and removed the white rose boutonniere. It dropped onto the marble floor like a feather and landed like a verdict. Outside, the Rolls waited, engine humming. "Take me back," he told Daryl. "No address, no explanation, just back. Back to H Street. Back to the cracked sidewalk and the peeling paint. Back to the place where his future had already begun without him." The drive was quiet. No calls, no texts. The city moved around them, unaware that a man was unraveling and rebuilding at the same time. They reached the bus stop. It was empty. No Amelia, no Leo, no Queen. Only wind brushing past the bench like a whisper. Alexander stepped out, heart thudding in his chest. The sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the concrete. For a moment, he wondered if he'd imagined it all. Then he saw it. A small worn bunny slumped against the bench. One ear torn, its fur matted. He knelt beside it slowly, hands trembling. Tied around the bunny's neck was a piece of lined paper, folded and tucked beneath a rubber band. He opened it. "They've waited long enough. If you're serious, you'll know where to find us." No signature, no address, just truth. Alexander clutched the bunny, holding it like something sacred. It didn't smell like roses or wealth. It smelled like children, like a second chance, and he wasn't letting go. The apartment complex was tucked between two chain-link fences in southeast D.C., the kind of place you only find if you're looking for something that matters. Alexander stood at the door, heart pounding harder than it ever had in a boardroom. The hallway smelled like old paint and someone frying onions. The air was heavy, but not with shame, just life. He raised his hand and knocked. Footsteps. Then the door creaked open. Leo stood there, small but steady. He didn't say a word, just looked up at him with the same eyes Alexander had avoided in the mirror for years. Then Amelia appeared behind him. No makeup, no pretense, no shield. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't say anything at all. Alexander took a breath, then did something he hadn't done in decades. He dropped to one knee, held out the bunny, and whispered, "Hi, I'm your dad. If you'll let me, I'd like to start from here." No promises, no excuses, just presence. A quiet offer to begin again, not at the top, but at the truth. Amelia's eyes didn't soften, but she didn't close the door either. Queen peeked from the hallway, her tiny hand clutching the wall. And in that moment, Alexander Hartwell knew. Some empires aren't built with steel and concrete. They're built with apologies, with showing up, with staying. Sometimes success is found in the rooms we walked away from. Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is show up. He could have said "I do" and never looked back, but he broke the script. If you've ever stood at a crossroads between comfort and truth, then hit subscribe. Not for me. For what stories like this remind us to choose. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.